I already have like so many ideas about this, like how to combine various things. I mean, I've noticed you jig down there for like doing the plates and stuff, sort of combine the two and then being able to like carve the archings and sort of turn it in the perfect light and have like perfect straight back and do the arch.
Hi there, Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. Apologies if the heater is a bit loud, but it's been quite cold, so got the heater on again. So I'm here with Tibor again, and we thought actually before we go through what we've done today, we'd actually start by having a look at a couple of the little comments that went up on yesterday's video. So without any great delay, I shall just go straight in there. Actually, the first thing I wanted to say is I mentioned yesterday about we put the timber in the freezer to actually kill woodworm, and I've done that previously successfully with a guitar into a chest freezer, but I left it in there for about a month because I was in no rush, and someone's got back to me, a friend of mine, and said not sure that's going to work because she used to keep mealworm and stuff like that for her reptiles, which she used to feed to them live, and she used to keep the mealworm occasionally in the freezer, and they would quite happily sort of be frozen and then sort of be come alive again, I guess you call it, upon defrosting. So I've got a horrible feeling if there's any little woodworm in the timber, they'll be waking up today going, oh, what happened? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a defence against freezing in a tree. I think so. Yeah, I mean, so I can't actually say that we've definitely killed any worm that are in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a couple of other ways of doing it. We may heat treat a couple of little bits, and we'll certainly be putting a good coat of borax on the inside of the violin and so on.
Yeah, and just give it like a good inspection to the wood. Like once we thin them down, we're probably gonna see a lot better. Like what's waiting for us inside.
We're both pretty confident that we've cut out all the wormy bits because that was largely the sapwood.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We shall see. So that's a bit of an apology and an explanation to start off with. So comments. I spy a Shinto saw rasp. Love that thing. Yes. I've seen these in various guitar making videos over the years, and it's only in the last sort of year that I bought one, and it's fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I've been using it today to on the two fingerboards that I've been working on, and this is new to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is completely brand new to me. And I quite love it. It's really fast. It's fairly accurate as well. You make nice flat surfaces. Yeah.
I think the fact that the shavings, the dust has got somewhere to go on the surface is one thing. So it clears itself really quickly. And the other thing is because of the way the blades are bent and so on, you haven't got that regimented thing of teeth chattering on a surface. So like a hand cut file or like a diamond file, you don't get juddering with these, which I really like. They're a bit. It's a little bit flexible at the handle end, but as long as you're careful with it, it's great. Yeah, I'll certainly be making sure I always have one in my toolkit for sure. Right, and then just a few interesting. Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. Thank you. But there are two questions which kind of cover the same thing, really, which we definitely should talk about, and that is slab cut versus sort of quarter sawn. So shall I kick off?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, traditionally, single piece backs on violins are generally slab cut. Generally, this is a real generalisation, but they tend to be. And book match stuff on violins, and definitely on the fronts, are pretty much always quarter sawn.
Yeah.
And that means, quarter sawn basically means that the annual rings bisect the thickness of the front. So if that's the thickness of the front, all the annual rings are like that. And slab cut basically means there's the trunk and you've cut it through in slabs. So in some of them, you're going to have, pretty much quarter sawn timber, the center one. But most of the others, they will have, your slab will have grain like this. My understanding basically is it's more flexible, and that is sort of borne out in what people tend to say about violins with slab cut backs, is that they tend to be a little bit mellower, and that could be something to do with the flexibility of the timber. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I like even heard like that technically, I don't know how it turns out in real life on a violin, but at least like on paper, normally with most species of wood, the slab cut wood is actually stiffer than quarter sawn wood. Yeah,
okay.
and I actually first when I read this, I actually didn't believe it, and I thought it was some sort of mistake. And I read this in like a woodworking book, and I thought, surely this must be a mistake. Surely like quarter sawn wood is stiffer. But then I actually did a few tests just by taking a few bits of wood and planing them to like small, like completely perfectly square sticks. So like a stick which is perfectly square in section. And then I just like measured the stiffness just by placing a weight on there and just measuring how much it bends. And actually when you measure it this way, the radially cut, so the quarter sawn cut wood is more flexible.
That's interesting,
which is quite interesting.
I think I think the main reason people Anyway, as we were, I actually think I think the use of quarter sawn timber springs from a different kind of reason, and it's picked up a load of other things on the way. And that is, there's no doubt that quarter sawn timber is more stable.
Yeah.
And
fluctuation in humidity
exactly.
is obviously clearly.
And if you have a musical instrument neck, the last thing you want is for it to start changing and moving and wandering all over the place. So actually having the grain absolutely square in one direction or the other is critical, I think, for components like a neck.
Absolutely.
I mean, other than that, it's hard to know, isn't it? I mean, there are, I mean, as Thibault mentioned yesterday, there are quite a few photographs online that you can find of cellos with spruce that is slab cut on the front, and apparently they sound great. So who's to say?
So like one point about slab cut is like the question, or like slab cut versus quarter sawn is the question of cracks. And we did talk about that a bit, that like if you look at a tree section, obviously it like cracks exactly 90 degrees to the growth rings. So like if you think of it like that, you'd think that the slab cut wood would be way more prone to cracking.
That's what we're talking about, basically. That's what you see in a tree. You see cracks there. But we were having this conversation yesterday, and one thing I suggested is that you see that because the outside of the tree obviously dries faster than the inside, and therefore the perimeter is becoming it's getting shorter, so to speak, and therefore must be under a lot of tension, and therefore will open up. And I don't know if you've ever seen tables made out of slices of tree, for example.
No.
Yeah, there was one when I was doing some design work for Mark Wilkinson Furniture, and we made one like that, and surprise, surprise, this
big crack.
great crack opened up, and it just
of course,
did that.
It has to be able to shrink somehow.
But if you think about it, the distance around the outside is, I mean, so if that's going to shrink 5%, and that's going to shrink 5%, that bit in the middle isn't moving very far, and that bit on the outside has got a long way to go. So inevitably you end up with a. So I think what we're kind of saying here is we don't really know at this point in time.
I guess first of all, it's probably different on most species of woods, and we are now here planning to do a hardwood front, so that's probably already completely a different story to a spruce front. I mean, with spruce, sort of my gut feeling would say that it's, if you're like splitting kindling for your firewood, for example, I feel like, I obviously haven't done enough tests, but I feel like it's easier to split sort of exactly 90 degrees to the growth rings than with the growth rings. But I mean, for cherry, it's going to be a different story. And then, the question is, does it actually make a difference on the finished instrument?
Well,
do they become like considerably more fragile, or is it just a very small sort of neglectable difference?
Anyway, we're both going to be making instruments with slabs on fronts over the next few weeks, so I'm hoping that we'll be tuning them up and listening to them before the end of this series anyway, so that will be quite interesting. Anyway, right, what have you been up to today?
Well, I started the construction of this violin that we're talking about. I did glue the blocks onto the inner mold using hot melt glue for the first time, and I'm really positively surprised by how easy and fast it is to use hot melt glue. And especially I was a bit careless the first time round, and then I noticed that my whole construction was like rocking, and the blocks were not all glued on the same sort of plane, it wasn't flat, and so it was super easy just to like crack off the blocks that were sort of standing out and just re-glue them like super fast. It was like 5 or 10 minutes, and the problem was sorted, which would not have been as fast with hide glue. So I'm really positively surprised about hot melt glue.
That's good. I mean, I wouldn't dream of using hot melt glue in a situation where it formed part of the finished instrument, but as something just, as part of the production sort of method, I see nothing against using it at all. It just seems sensible. Really.
And then I shaped the blocks. I did them by hand using those lovely paring gouges. Really nice to use those. And I think we're basically ready to do the ribs tomorrow.
I mean, the approach we're taking is, Thibaut is here not for me to teach him how to make violins, because he is already pretty skilled in that department, but it's actually so that he can see how I do it. And so what we're doing is, because Thibaut's a guest in the workshop here, I'm not very keen on him using all my machines, simply because I want to make sure he leaves at the end of 6 weeks, with
a similar amount of fingers.
And safely put on his way. So he is. I'm telling him how I do things by hand, and that's the route, the path that Thibaut is going down. He's doing my process generally by hand, and because I want him also to see the other part of how I do it, which is using machines. The next violin that I do, the one that I will start in this series, hopefully in the next few days, I'm going to be doing everything that I can by my machine method, which I wouldn't normally do. I mean, I like to vary things. Sometimes I'm just not in the mood to use machines. Other times I just not in the mood to use hand tools. But that's going to be my method by hand, and mine will be my method by machine, effectively. So it should be quite interesting to see those two, I think. Yeah. Apart from that, what have I been doing today? I mean, today I got the neck joints done, the necks glued on. Both violins are on the boiler in there. I then set to and sort of made 2 fingerboards. I've got those ready. The nuts and the saddles as well. Now, because Thibaut is here seeing what I get up to, I've actually, because I'm making finishing 2 violins, I've elected to make one of the fingerboards in rock light, and it's not rock light, is it?
Rock light or rich light?
Rich light. That's it. Rock light was an English version, which I don't even know if it's still available. But rich light is the one I actually meant. Sorry about that. I've been calling it that for days. And the other one is this compressed bamboo decking material. So which is the one that I tend to use now. But I thought it'd be very interesting to do both. The rich light is slightly harder, is a lot more smelly when you're machining it and so on. It's not very pleasant. The bamboo is great, but in the machining you do get lots of little, because it's effectively a grass. The fibres are fundamentally different from a hardwood, and so during the manufacturing you do get lots of almost cactus-like little spines rather than splinters. So you have to be a little bit careful, but that's not a problem once it's done. I mean, it's not a problem in the finished item at all. So that's what I've been up to. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be putting those onto the violins. And tomorrow, ribs, and maybe even bending ribs. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I think that's it for today, isn't it?
Yeah,
pretty much.
So
so that's it from us. See you tomorrow. Cheers, folks. Look after yourselves.